Narrator. The midday sun beats down on the bustling town square like a merciless executioner, yet the atmosphere is paralyzed by an unnatural, bone-chilling cold. Stand in the center of this arena for a moment and feel the crushing weight of hundreds of judging eyes staring daggers into one solitary, trembling figure, Violet. Directly in front of her stands the man who gave her life, Alpha Terrakus. His chest is puffed out with the sickeningly arrogant authority of a tyrant who believes the world bends to his whim. With a voice dripping with absolute disgust, he does the unthinkable. Terrakus gong hét lớn, vang dội đầy tàn nhẫn và kiêu ngạo. I, Alpha Terrakus, officially sever all blood ties with you, Violet. You are nothing but a defective, worthless piece of trash. Get out of my pack territory and die in the dirt. Sound effect. Tiếng xì xào nhạo báng của đám đông vang lên, ngay sau đó là một tiếng gầm trầm đục, uy nghiêm dội thẳng xuống làm rung động cả mặt đất. Narrator. It is the ultimate, visceral betrayal, a public execution of a child's soul by her own father. But just as the crushing despair threatens to suffocate the life out of the scene, the very fabric of the air shifts. The atmosphere grows heavy, suffocatingly thick with an aura so ancient and terrifyingly potent that it brings the surrounding wolves crashing to their knees, their instincts screaming in submission. Stepping out from the biting shadows is not a fairy tale savior in shining armor, but a nightmare dressed as salvation, Alpha King Killian. He does not shout, he does not flex. With a mere chilling whisper of absolute authority, he single-handedly dismantles Terrakus's entire theatrical display of dominance, claiming the broken, rejected girl as his own. Killian, giọng trầm ấm, uy lực, thì thầm nhưng khiến tất cả run rẩy. Your blood ties mean nothing to me, Terrakus. You just threw away your greatest asset. From this second onward, this girl belongs to the royal throne. Touch her, and your entire bloodline burns. Sound effect. Tiếng bước chân uy nghiêm rời đi, tiếng xì xào sợ hãi dội lại phía sau. Nhạc nền chuyển sang nhịp điệu phân tích sâu lắng, đầy cuốn hút. Narrator. Wolf King Stories warmly welcomes you all to a journey far beyond the ordinary. If this breathtaking juxtaposition of loud, desperate cruelty and silent, absolute power sent a shiver down your spine, please hit that subscribe button to support the channel, giving us the motivation to continue bringing you these deep, captivating explorations. You will not want to miss the psychological unraveling that awaits at the end of this video. Welcome to the deep dive into White Wolf, Revenge of the Outcast. Today I am not simply recounting a superficial werewolf romance for you. We are going to scientifically and psychologically dissect the very soul of this narrative. For years, I have watched mainstream literary critics dismiss the Omegaverse as mere pulp fiction, an endless, mindless recycling of fated mates and alpha tropes. Yet, it dominates reading platforms globally, generating millions of ravenous views and an intensely loyal, almost feverish fanbase. I had to ask myself why. The truth is, beneath the superficial fantasy of shifting into beasts lies a profound, deeply relatable exploration of the human psyche. It violently taps into the most primal social dynamics of our own existence, the brutal nature of social hierarchies, the paralyzing fear of ostracization, and the fundamental, agonizing human yearning to simply belong. The motif of the rejected underdog is the bleeding heart of this genre. Psychologically, we humans are hardwired to desperately root for the victim of unfair treatment. This stems from our deepest evolutionary need for tribal equity and fairness. When I look at a character like Violet systematically abused, silenced, and thrown away like trash by her own flesh and blood, my sense of justice is violently provoked. We become instantly, helplessly invested. However, the author of this story elevates this standard trope into an absolute masterclass of psychological manipulation and narrative framing. This story hooks into your brain not just through cheap pity, but through a meticulously crafted dopamine loop of agonizing suppression and explosive eventual release. Through this lens, we will decode the psychological architecture of the White Wolf, dissect the author's brilliant execution of unseen power to create the ultimate fantasy of protection, and understand the intoxicating, almost addictive chemistry of narrative catharsis that keeps us entirely enslaved to the turning page. To truly understand why we become so hopelessly addicted to this narrative of release, we must first dive into the agonizing depths of the suppression itself by examining the shattered psyche of our protagonist. Sound effect, tiếng xích sut kéo lê tharm hai. Tiếng thở dốc đầy cô độc trong bóng đêm rông bão. Narrator. When we first encounter Violet, we are not looking at a standard heroine. We are witnessing the tragic manifestation of complex post-traumatic stress disorder wrapped in human flesh. The author does not shy away from the grotesque reality of familial abuse, painting a harrowing portrait of a girl who has been systematically conditioned to view her own existence as a burden. In the Omegaverse, the pack is the ultimate symbol of security, identity, and survival. To be rejected by your pack, and specifically by the Alpha, who is both your biological father and your sovereign leader, is akin to a psychological death sentence. Violet's trauma is deeply rooted in the concept of chronic emotional starvation. She is the white wolf, an anomaly whose very existence threatens the fragile, toxic masculinity of her father, Terrakus. Instead of nurturing her uniqueness, her pack ruthlessly crushes it, projecting their own insecurities onto her frail shoulders. As a reader, watching Violet navigate this minefield of daily humiliations is visceral and deeply uncomfortable, but it serves a vital narrative purpose. The author brilliantly utilizes Violet's initial passivity not as a sign of inherent weakness, but as a calculated survival mechanism. When you are trapped in a predator's den, invisibility is your only armor. I have seen countless critics misinterpret this trope, claiming these female protagonists are frustratingly meek. But look closer, and you will see the quiet, agonizing resilience of a survivor enduring the unendurable. Violet's internal monologue is a battlefield of cognitive dissonance. She desperately craves the love of a father who is fundamentally incapable of providing it, while simultaneously nurturing a tiny, fiercely guarded ember of self-preservation. How many of us have stayed in toxic environments, be it relationships, workplaces, or even families, shrinking ourselves to keep the peace? Violet is a mirror held up to the parts of our own souls that have been told we are too much, yet never enough. Her ultimate rejection in the town square is the gruesome climax of this psychological torture, but it is also the necessary breaking point. The author meticulously constructs this scene to ensure that every last tie, tying Violet to her abusers, is severed, leaving her utterly devoid of hope. She hits absolute rock bottom, entirely stripped of her identity, her family, and her future. This deliberate deconstruction of the protagonist is a masterstroke in pacing. By completely obliterating Violet's old life, the narrative clears the stage for a resurrection. We are left holding our breath, completely shattered alongside her, recognizing that she cannot survive another blow, and desperately waiting for a miracle. Yet, a soul this systematically fractured cannot heal in the very environment that broke it. It requires a disruptive, tectonic force to pull it from the abyss, bringing us to the enigma that is Alpha King Killian. Sound effect. Tiếng bước chân uy nghiêm, nặng nề gõ xuống nền đá. Nhạc nền nổi lên đầy dồn dập, mạnh mẽ và bao phủ. Narrator. Enter the apex predator. Alpha King Killian is introduced not with the trumpets of a righteous savior, but with the suffocating, terrifying gravity of a natural disaster. In dissecting Killian's character, we must analyze the profound juxtaposition between him and Terrakus. Terrakus represents loud, performative power, the kind of weak, desperate dominance that requires constant validation through the subjugation of the vulnerable. Killian, on the other hand, embodies absolute, silent authority. He is the shadow that even monsters fear. Psychologically, the author is playing with the archetype of the lethal protector, a concept deeply embedded in our evolutionary psychology. In a chaotic, dangerous world, the ultimate fantasy of safety is not a pacifist, but a monster who is violently uncompromising toward the world, yet miraculously gentle with you. Killian's intervention in the town square is a masterclass in nonverbal dominance. When he claims Violet, he does not do so to enslave her. though to the untrained eye of the surrounding pack, it might appear that way. He recognizes the latent, suppressed power of the white wolf, seeing the magnificent creature beneath the dirt and blood. This is the core romantic fantasy driving the Omegaverse, the concept of being truly seen. After a lifetime of being told she is worthless, defective, and invisible, Violet is suddenly thrust into the spotlight by the most powerful being on the continent, who looks at her and sees absolute, irreplaceable value. The psychological high this gives the reader is staggering. It is the ultimate vindication. Furthermore, Killian's character serves as a necessary vessel for restorative justice. We, as the audience, harbor a deep-seated, almost feral rage toward Terrakus and the pack. Violet is too broken to enact vengeance herself, at least, not yet. Killian acts as the surrogate for our collective fury. His mere presence promises that there will be a reckoning, creating a delicious tension that keeps us obsessively reading. But the genius of his characterization lies in his restraint. A lesser writer would have had Killian slaughter the pack right then and there. Instead, the author has him walk away, leaving Terrakus to drown in the humiliating realization of his own catastrophic mistake. Killian's power is so absolute that he doesn't need to throw a punch to utterly destroy his enemy's ego. He provides the protective sanctuary required for Violet to finally exhale, setting the foundation for one of the most compelling dynamics in modern fantasy romance. However, thrusting a deeply traumatized survivor into the arms of an apex predator does not magically cure the past. Rather, it sets the stage for a complex, painfully beautiful dance of vulnerability. Sound effect, tiếng lửa chai bập bung áp. Nhạc nền chuyển sang êm dịu, nhẹ nhàng nhưng tràn ngập sự căng thẳng ngầm. Narrator. The true brilliance of White Wolf, Revenge of the Outcast, lies not in the dramatic rescue, but in the agonizingly slow, meticulously earned aftermath. If the author had allowed Violet to immediately fall into Killian's arms, weeping with gratitude and instantly cured of her trauma, this story would have been an insult to the psychological realism it established. Instead, we are given a masterclass in the messy, non-linear reality of healing. When you have spent your entire life being conditioned by abuse, sudden kindness is not comforting, it is terrifying. It is suspicious. Violet does not immediately trust Killian, and from a psychological standpoint, this is incredibly accurate. Her brain's neural pathways have been wired for danger, constantly anticipating the hidden cost of his protection. This introduces the slow burn dynamic that makes this narrative so incredibly addictive. Killian, despite possessing the power to conquer nations, has to willingly strip off his armor and learn the delicate art of patience. The narrative shifts from a macro-level display of power to a micro-level exploration of consent, boundaries, and emotional safety. Every interaction between them is a delicate negotiation of trust. The author builds their chemistry not just through physical attraction, though the underlying mate bond hums with a palpable, electric tension, but through acts of consistent, predictable safety. Killian provides food without demanding gratitude. He provides shelter without demanding submission. He is systematically rewriting Violet's understanding of what it means to be an alpha. This relationship dynamic speaks to the psychological concept of secure attachment. Violet, exhibiting profound anxious avoidant behaviors, is slowly anchored by Killian's unwavering stability. The romance is deeply rooted in mutual salvation. While Killian is healing Violet's shattered self-worth, Violet is unknowingly humanizing the untouchable king. She teaches the lethal monster the value of gentleness. The emotional payoff here is staggering. When Violet finally begins to lower her walls when she first initiates touch, when she finally raises her eyes to meet his without flinching, the victory feels monumental. It is a victory earned through thousands of words of careful psychological pacing. The author makes us work for the romance, making the eventual spiritual and physical union of these two souls feel less like a fairy tale inevitability and more like a hard-won triumph of the human spirit over profound adversity. This exquisite emotional payoff ultimately reveals the true, enduring purpose of why narratives like White Wolf resonate so fiercely across generations. Sound effect. Nhạc nền bùng nổ vĩ cầm đầy huy hoàng và kiêu hãnh, sức mạnh vương quyền ngập tràn. Narrator. As we pull back the lens to view this narrative in its entirety, it becomes blindingly apparent that dismissing this story as mere supernatural romance is a profound mistake. White Wolf, Revenge of the Outcast, is an allegorical fable about the reclamation of power. It utilizes the fantastical elements of wolves, mates, and alpha hierarchies to magnify the very real human experiences of marginalization, trauma recovery, and self-actualization. The overarching journey of Violet from a discarded, beaten outcast in the dirt to a revered queen stepping into her undeniable, inherent power is the ultimate narrative of vindication. Psychologically, this story functions as a deeply cathartic simulation for the reader. In our real lives, the villains rarely face such poetic justice. The bosses who belittle us, the family members who diminish us, the societal structures that cast us out, they rarely experience the devastating realization of their own folly. But in the realm of the Omegaverse, karma is not a distant, theoretical concept. It is a physical entity, often embodied by a roaring Alpha King or an awakened White Wolf. When Violet finally returns to face her former pack, she is no longer the trembling girl from the town square. She is whole, she is loved, and she is lethally powerful. The revenge in this story is not solely about physical destruction. It is about the agonizing, soul-crushing regret experienced by Terrakus and the pack as they realize they threw away their greatest asset. Living well, as they say, is the best revenge, and the author executes this philosophy with devastating perfection. We need stories like this. We need these unapologetically dramatic, deeply emotional narratives that give a voice to the voiceless and provide a safe space to process our own hidden traumas. They remind us that our worth is not determined by those who are too blind to see it. They teach us that even the most shattered pieces of a soul can be forged into something magnificent, provided they are placed in the right hands and ultimately, into our own hands. This is the true magic of the genre. It is not about the fangs or the shifting. It is about the enduring, invincible nature of hope. Thank you for joining me on this intense psychological exploration. If this deep dive resonated with you, if it made you see the Omegaverse and stories like White Wolf in a completely different light, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to Wolf King Stories for more profound, unapologetic literary analysis. Until next time, remember your worth, never let anyone dim your light, and keep turning those pages. In conclusion, White Wolf, Revenge of the Outcast transcends the boundaries of standard fantasy romance to deliver a profound masterclass in psychological resilience. The narrative masterfully dissects the anatomy of trauma through Violet's harrowing experiences, illustrating that true survival often requires making oneself invisible in a predatory environment. However, the story's greatest triumph lies not in her dramatic rescue by Alpha King Killian, but in the meticulous, agonizingly slow process of healing that follows. Killian serves as the ultimate lethal protector, offering the absolute emotional and physical safety necessary for Violet to rewire her trauma-bound instincts and embrace her inherent worth. This is not merely a tale of a broken girl being saved by a powerful man. It is a profound allegory for reclaiming one's power and identity after systemic abuse. By juxtaposing toxic, performative dominance with quiet, steadfast support, the author provides a cathartic roadmap for moving from profound marginalization to self-actualized empowerment. Violet's evolution from a discarded outcast to a revered, fiercely powerful queen reminds readers that rock bottom can simply be the cleared foundation for an extraordinary resurrection. It is a testament to the fact that while trauma can shatter a soul, genuine safety, patience, and a refusal to remain a victim can reforge those pieces into something beautifully invincible. Your inherent value is never dictated by the inability of toxic environments or broken people to recognize it. Being rejected or diminished by those who are supposed to protect or support you does not mean you are defective. It simply means you are in the wrong pack. Healing requires the immense courage to drop your survival armor when you finally reach a safe harbor. Evaluate the packs you currently belong to: your workplace, your friend circles, or your relationships. If you find yourself constantly shrinking, hiding your true potential, or walking on eggshells to appease someone else's fragile ego, recognize that you are merely surviving, not living. Actively seek out relationships and environments that offer secure attachment, places where your boundaries are respected, where support is given without hidden conditions, and where you are encouraged to step into your full power. Stop waiting for toxic people to realize your worth, and start placing yourself in hands that naturally celebrate it, starting with your own. Have you ever had to walk away from a toxic environment, like a bad job or an unhealthy relationship, to finally rediscover your true self? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments section below. Reading about your unique perspectives helps everyone in our community learn and draw strength from one another. Finally, if you enjoyed this analysis, please subscribe to the channel. Your support is the ultimate motivation that keeps us creating more deep, thought-provoking content just for you.